Great. So just a little introduction of who we are at Applied Software. Founded in 1982, Applied Software has remained dedicated to providing our customers with the technology and innovation needed to move their business and industry forward. As an Autodesk Platinum partner, we deliver world-class design solutions, products, and services while providing customers with best-in-class full solutions. And now we're proud to be a part of the GRAITEC Group, a global leading BIM provider serving architectural, engineering, construction, and manufacturing customers. Between ASTI and our parent company, GRAITEC, we employ a large team of developers who work with our customers on software development projects and customized workflows to help them realize accelerated levels of productivity. We also work with partners like Cool Orange, utilizing their tools and expertise to move clients into BOM management with Vault from other systems that have expensive, antiquated, or disjointed workflows, or from manual methods. In addition, we work together to help our customers to bridge the gap between Vault's BOM management and downstream systems. Milt, I'll let you go ahead and introduce Cool Orange.
Sure. We're Cool Orange. We are an Autodesk application developer, ISV, and premier service provider. We basically build software on top of the Autodesk platform. So we partner with ASTI and with Autodesk to deliver vertical solutions on the entire Autodesk stack. For the purpose of today's discussion, we're going to talk about our products that connect systems. So our products fall into three general categories, what we call load, automate, and connect. The load portion, as you might guess, are tools and utilities for loading data, particularly into the Autodesk stack. This is primarily focused on Vault, though it's also focused on Vault and Fusion 360 Manage. Then the sort of day in, day out thing that we do is automate solutions on top of the platform. So we have a series of products that automate repetitive tasks and add intelligence into your process flows. This is focused on the CAD stack and Vault primarily. And then the purpose of today's discussion is to talk about our Connect solutions, which are integration products that connect the vaulted CAD user with what we'll talk about today, ERP and PLM. So Dave, you want to set up the discussion for today?
Great. Yep. So today we're going to present and outline the common challenges that manufacturers face when trying to manually manage bills of materials. And then we'll present the best market solution for automating that BOM management, which we at Applied Software have been helping our customers implement and customize for more than 15 years. We'll then talk about the next challenge that manufacturers face with bills of materials, and that is sharing that BOM with downstream business systems, such as ERPs and PLMs. As Milt stated earlier, our focus will be on presenting and demoing the Cool Orange solution that enables the sharing of the Vault BOM data. And this provides manufacturers with streamlined, automated bidirectional synchronization of Vault and ERP data. We'll also want to know a little bit more about you. So we'll have a couple of poll questions and we'll have some time for Q&A. So let's get started.
Great.
All right, so manufacturing companies use different BOMs for different teams, internal and external to the company. For example, people doing quality control, testing, and documentation need access to the BOM. People responsible for the stockroom may use a BOM for maintaining inventories. Sales department may use a BOM to create a product that is configurable by the end customer. Our focus today is on the engineering BOM. The engineering BOM contains the list, the quantities of all the raw materials, the sub-assemblies, the item types, steps, and other relevant information required to manufacture the finished product. So a bill of material, we all know, helps manufacturing companies to plan the purchase of raw material, estimate the cost of materials, track and plan material requirements, as well as reduce waste. Given the range of information within a bill of materials, creating one often requires input from a cross-section of manufacturing functions, including design and engineering, purchasing, materials management, and manufacturing. Surprisingly, many manufacturing companies use highly paid engineers to manually create BOMs using a spreadsheet. And then we've got someone else, such as a production planning assistant, who manually enters them into the ERP or other business systems. If a company is dealing with a large assemblies and complex BOMs, this can be very time-consuming and can also be tedious and painful. What happens if there's a typo in the spreadsheet or someone forgets to update it? Incomplete or inaccurate BOMs can cause production delays, increases in production and operational costs, decreases in product quality, and product returns and rework. Worst case scenario, it can result in lost customers.
I don't know about you, Dave, but every time I look at a really large BOM from one of our customers, I wonder how on earth they ever survived getting it put together manually if they do it that way. Like, I never get through it.
Well, typically the person you're dealing with has no hair left, so
exactly.
All right. So for manufacturing companies that continue to manage BOMs manually or with spreadsheets, they will undoubtedly need to address these common challenges. First, when spreadsheets are disconnected from drawings and change orders, it's very difficult to control and track the usage of components and parts. Second, spreadsheets can be easily modified by anyone who has access and leads to multiple versions, and nobody knows which one's correct. So that leads us down a whole nother road there. That's where the hair comes out. Purchasing can't easily know which BOMs share components to negotiate better volume pricing. And fourth, companies that need to collaborate and share BOMs with distributed teams or suppliers, they got additional challenges with BOM updates. So to sum it up, the manual processes for BOM management lead to outdated, inaccurate, and incomplete information, resulting in inevitable errors and potentially significant costs. So Excel, we all know Excel. Excel has been the go-to tool for BOM management because it's inexpensive to license, it's easy to implement, and most everybody's familiar with it. However, growing manufacturing companies need to ditch BOM management via spreadsheet and look to technology solutions for automated processes and workflows, data integration and sharing, and security and collaboration by connecting the Vault and CAD with the ERP system. We want to ditch the silos and come to an integrated, collaborative, connected system. So with technology solutions to automate engineering processes and workflows, errors from product data silos and the manual transfer of information between various systems is eliminated. So the solution.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dave. Yeah, no,
yeah.
Please.
So the solution is Autodesk Vault. It's the foundation for manufacturing companies to create and maintain engineering BOMs. It's purpose-built for this, right? Vault can create and maintain a complete manufacturing BOM for your designs from your vaulted data. Using Vault items, you can quantify objects that aren't represented by a CAD file, such as grease, adhesive, product packaging, or even documentation. Vault can automatically assign numbers for items using numbering schemes, which are customizable by you, or item numbers can be assigned using document properties, or even can be done manually. Items and BOMs are managed using revisions and lifecycle states, such as work in progress or released. For example, when a design moves out of the release state to a work in progress, Vault responds by automatically bumping the revision in preparation for editing and re-release. An entire product design can be managed using lifecycle states. Once released, the design, the BOM, and associated documents are locked, and that prevents any uncontrolled change. Vault's BOM revisions are flexible, and designs can be rolled back to a previous revision if change management requires it.
Exactly. Thanks, Dave.
Yep. Yep.
So here's the situation. You have your Vault and the vaulted applications, particularly your CAD apps, but also Excel and Word and what have you, that are keeping track of the configuration of your overall design, right down to every part and every screw, if you want it to be that detailed. On the sort of other side of the collaboration equation, you have systems like ERP. So we'll concentrate on ERP for the purposes of this discussion, but it could be, there's other systems that this same thing applies to. So if you think about when you're communicating with the folks who are working in ERP, you need to synchronize the items themselves, right? So you need to send, if you have a new item that you need to create that you've never created before, that may be associated with a part file in CAD. You need to agree with the ERP system about what your numbering scheme or your naming scheme, right? Depending on the system you're connecting to, you may need to let the ERP system choose the number based on some criteria. Or you could have an ERP environment where your CAD environment gets to choose the number. You have to decide those things ahead of time. Now, once you establish the association between, say, a part file and an item in ERP, then that association and the data items themselves need to be synchronized as they change, right? This is the kind of thing that is best done by middleware software, right? It's really, really difficult to do manually, and we'll show some examples of that in the future. The next thing, of course, is then once you're synchronizing these items, deciding, is it a new material ID pulled from SAP or what have you, then you build them up into bills of materials as you work your designs, right? Those also need to be synchronized, and that's a more complex synchronization. Again, error-prone, tedious. Like I told Dave, I sometimes wonder how people survive doing this when these get big and complicated. And the last thing, you often need to communicate documents, whether they're original CAD documents or artifacts generated from your CAD documents, like a PDF of a drawing or a DXF flat pattern from a design if you're going to make sheet metal, right? So the idea of having these synchronized behind the scenes on your behalf becomes particularly useful as these things become, these systems become more complex and your designs become more complex. So essentially what we have for a solution to this is what we call our PowerGate server. It's a bidirectional server. If anyone cares, it's based on a technology called OData, which is a web-based data communication protocol. But essentially it makes the ERP system look similar and understandable to the Vault and the vaulted CAD clients. So what does that look like? Essentially what we do is we make the working environment for the vaulted CAD user and the vaulted designer coherent, and we let them work on ERP data and information that actually lives in that other system in the context of their CAD app, right? So if you look at the little picture here, right, in this case, the example is, I think, Microsoft Navision, right? So a sort of generic ERP system as far as we're concerned. And if you notice, down in the Vault user window, we've got a little extension to the UI, and this is using, Autodesk standard, UI extension capability. So it's all sort of standard Vault stuff. This UI is essentially functioning as a window into the other app through that gateway. So you can see the data objects in the context of your CAD design. So if you notice, there's an assembly there. And so not surprisingly, that assembly corresponds to a bill of materials in ERP, right? So the idea is you can see the CAD data, you can see the ERP data in the context that you want to work in when you're working in your CAD working environment. And then behind the scenes, things like synchronizing changes to those things as you're working through your normal CAD design workflow can be handled by the gateway. So you don't have to do the thing that people do now, which is export stuff to a spreadsheet, manipulate a bunch of fields, figure out the naming scheme, and decide whether you have to add leading zeros to the part number when you put it in the field in the other app, and then cut and paste between the two windows. Or all that stuff gets handled automatically, and you really should be able to just work cleanly in your CAD environment. This just to be clear, this works with well, until I guess next year, it works with Vault Workgroup, and then it works with Vault Professional. It can work with items, or if you just use files and you don't use Vault items, it can take the bill of materials and item information out of the structured BOM without using items. So either way, it's just a setting. And then behind the scenes, this is all very customizable. There's sort of a standard set of most common best practices that we build in. But then if you know the specific fields that you want to see in one of these windows, or rules you want to add in to check before you send something to the other system, etc., those are all easily customizable in the configuration of this system.
You know what I really like about this, Milt?
What's that, Dave?
I really like that, you know, like Vault, to me, it doesn't add much to the already in place workflows of engineering, right? Because it's tightly integrated with the AutoCAD and your Inventor. And I really like how the PowerGate's integrated with Vault. So again, it's part of the UI. It doesn't really add much to your workflow. It doesn't, you're not having to jump through a bunch of hoops to work with it. You work with it in the environment that you're familiar with. Like that.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea, right? We really would like to make as much of the designer engineer experience stay right here in the context of their vaulted working environment, without making them have two windows up and, you know, cut and paste things and trying to figure out what fields and, oh, what am I supposed to put in that thing where it says, you know, cross plant status? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what that means, right? We can usually code those things in once and it's all good to go. So I'm going to walk through one of the kinds of scenarios that we automate here. And there's a couple of ways that this can be done. One is essentially explicitly, we give you a button to do certain things. The other is we wire the interaction between your Vault and the synchronization with your ERP system based on lifecycle changes, right? I'll show the explicit one just because it's a little easier to describe, but then imagine the same things can happen if you say on release, then push all the changes, etc., right? So it's a little video version of this. So essentially, we're looking at a design here, right? And we say, all right, we have this part that we're using, and I want to see if we already have this defined in my ERP system, because I have not yet associated it with an ERP item, right? So I'm just actually going to do a little search into that other system. So this little bit of UI here is actually front-ending a call over to search for a part in the other system. Well, I found one, and we say, yeah, we like that one. So now, if you notice, we've got that thing associated with a part in ERP, and some of this other data is actually coming from that other system, right? Now, we can then decide, when we're saying this is sort of a window into the other system, we can decide which of those things are editable, what they are associated with. So now I've gone up, now I'm looking at the design, so the whole design, so that thing's associated with a different part, that's then also associated with a bill of materials. So I haven't pushed this one yet. So I say, all right, well, let's go and synchronize our BOMs. So first we have to make sure that all the items that it uses are over there. So we do that. It runs through, it asks the other system and says, oh, look at that, all 20 of them are over there already. Great. Now we check to see if the BOM itself is actually up to date. And it says, well, no, we've got a whole bunch of new parts, right? A bunch that are the same, right? So yeah, that looks okay to me. And so we say, go ahead and transfer it. Now, behind the scenes, this thing is communicating with the other system. It's comparing the values in these fields, and then it's synchronizing them and probably translating some values from one form to another so that they match the other system, etc. Now, usually we give you a button so you can go over and look at the other system if you ever want to again. and boom, you can see there's our BOM for the thing over in its view in Navision. Here's the BOM over here. If you look, they basically match up, right? And one of the keys here is that we try very hard not to duplicate data, right? So there's an association between, in this case, the part number and the ERP item number. But then some of these other fields that we show in here don't exist in CAD. We're not going to copy them back into Vault. We're going to leave them in ERP only. So if there's things like, you know, what shelf is this thing on, or in the warehouse, or what vendor do you buy it from, or things like that, we're not going to copy that into your Vault, so you don't have to keep everything synchronized. We're just going to let you see it by looking at it in the context of the app that actually sort of owns that information. Okay, so what does this do for you? Obviously, if these BOMs get big, right, the time to cut and paste and live in two apps and turn, you know, decide what that thing's supposed to be in that drop down based on something that's a property in your CAD file, and it's unbelievably faster to have a little bit of software that's essentially a PowerShell script that runs on the thing, go through and, you know, every time correctly copy the things. It also, obviously, this thing never forgets, you know, so it never leaves out one field, or forgets to put leading zeros on something, or doesn't fill in the cross-plant status or whatever.
Hey guys, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
which
please.
slide are we on right now? Because I have a poll question that I would like to push to the audience.
Oh, well, you want to go ahead and do that. I'll talk about the benefits after if you want.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Yeah, sorry again to interrupt, but I realized I can't see the slide numbers, so I can't go, aha, now is when I should interrupt.
There you go. More technical.
All right, everybody. Our first question for you guys today is, are you managing your BOM using spreadsheets? Yes or no? Are you managing your BOM using spreadsheets? Yes or no? Milt or Dave, do you have any suggestions either way?
I think more people are using spreadsheets than would like to admit it. But spreadsheets, CSV files, cutting and pasting between things, I think that's a lot of the real world right now.
Yeah.
Let us know when you're done.
All right, we've got 1 of 5 people submitted so far. Maybe they just don't want to admit it. Oh, wait, there we go. Oh, and we're having more attendees roll in. That's awesome. I realized a lot of people who registered for this webinar were not getting an email, and had to send out an emergency email saying, here's the link, don't worry.
All right, well, they can get the recording later.
Yep. All right, so we've got 2 people submitted answers, so we'll go with that one.
Okay.
All right, 50-50.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you what we've seen, obviously, out there, because we talked to a lot of folks who do this, is that if they haven't implemented some sort of solution like this, then they're almost always using spreadsheets, or they're exporting their data and then using some other application to manipulate it before they put it in their ERP system. So the other possibility is they don't even use spreadsheets. They're just manually opening 2 windows, one for their ERP system and one for their Vault, and their combination of cutting and pasting and eyeballing things and pulling things out of the drawing, and they're basically manually inputting data into their ERP system, which is just the worst case scenario. So anyway, anyway, just if you don't mind, I'll proceed on the
Go ahead.
discussion. So so the reasons I think to automate this stuff are pretty obvious, right? The problems that if you make a mistake, you can make you can put the wrong information into ERP. Those folks who are using that information are not looking back at your CAD data, so they don't know that they don't have the right information. They can go off and make the wrong thing. They can make it incorrectly. You can wind up generating a bunch of scrap. Worst case scenario, you can send something off to your customer that's wrong. All manner of those kind of problems that have to do. So the idea of automating these things is that your data quality will get better, the efficiency of the process goes up, and frankly, like I said to Dave in the beginning, the tedium of doing this, takes at least some of the joy out of doing designs, right? Because if you know at the end of the cool part, making something interesting and better, you have to do this massively painful cut and paste effort with this, error prone and tedious. I think it makes, Friday afternoon much less fun. So if you don't mind, we'll probably skip the next poll because I don't think it'd be easy if we just discuss this.
Yep.
So, okay. So the way we were talking about this now, we were talking about the product that connects to ERP, right? And ERP also functions as a pretty good stand-in for most other sort of on-prem systems that you need to connect to. There's a slightly different scenario for collaboration between your engineering and other things when you have a PLM system involved, right? So just if people aren't sort of completely up on the distinction, Vault is really a PDM system, if you want to be technically accurate. So it's more about your managing your engineering data, directly CAD and design related data. PLM, and from Autodesk, if you want to think about it, that's the piece of the puzzle that they solve with Fusion 360 Manage, which is the cloud solution for PLM. The two work together to form sort of a coherent whole, right? And the PLM portion of it is more about process flow that's driven around the CAD designs and other information that comes from other systems, right? So if you think about in CAD and PDM, you're keeping, it's like source code control for your CAD files, right? Making sure you don't lose the versions, which is a coherent set of engineering designs. You have a release process and a revisioning history and all that, right? It's also good for publishing artifacts to other users, whether that's flat patterns, etc. PLM is more about the overarching processes. I sometimes think about this as the little wheel, the PDM little wheel inside the big wheel of PLM. So your whole new product introduction process, your quality assurance things, feedback, warranty things, corrective action reports and things, right? So all of those things are PLM processes. They need to be informed by and feed back to your PDM data, right? And it's the same kinds of objects that we're communicating about. It's your items, it's your BOMs, it's documents, whether it's the actual CAD documents or associated documents. And then there's change management and task management, feeding back and forth, right? So in order to accomplish this, we've actually, for the purposes of the Autodesk environment, we've actually built a pre-built connector between the, a little video is running here before we get started. We've built a pre-built connector between the Vault on-prem and the Fusion 360 Manage environment that, just like the ERP to Vault connectivity, this does the same thing for a designer or a team that are using both systems. As you make changes in your PDM environment, it will inform your product procurement process that's running in. Say you have to buy the parts, right? Well, there's a person up there who does procurement activities who's not a CAD engineer, probably. They're not involved in the design changes, but they do need to know when you've decided to use a different part or that you need new parts procured or what have you. So they'll need to be told when a design changes. So essentially we've done the same thing, right? So if you look, when we make a change to an assembly in the vaulted CAD environment, right? We're gonna have drawings associated with that. We're gonna have this other information like a PDF that has, in this case, assembly instructions, right? All of this is our normal flow of making design changes. Inside this might be a new release. This might be a change for some corrective action report or whatever that we're told from the sort of the outside world, right? So we make a little change. I'm actually going to jump ahead because we're taking a little too much time here. But when things change in this environment, right? Well, there we go. So we just made a new release change. So let me hold this for 1 second here. And now what we do is behind the scenes, Vault has a thing called a job processor, right? So that job processor is watching our designs. So when we made that change, it said, oh, look at all these parts had changes made to them. Well, I have to tell the Fusion lifecycle system that these things changed. So it queues up a job or a series of jobs, and each one of those are little communication things that send an update to the bill of materials information for each of these things in the BOM up to Fusion 360 Manage, and tell it, hey, we've got a new update to whether it's the size or the count of parts or what have you, right? So those jobs run. So it's a little bit of a polling mechanism where this thing is watching what you're doing on-prem, and it knows what you want to tell the cloud-based system. So as soon as those jobs run, right? So we're going to let it run. It's running through. These are all things that you would have to, if you were doing this manually, you'd be creating new items in the cloud UI of Fusion 360. You'd be uploading attachments. You'd be attaching to those things. You'd be putting them in the right place and hopefully connecting them to the right object. Boom. In this case, it wasn't a very big one. It was just this little table, and you notice how many particular tasks the job processor had to do, right? So now that this thing's released, we can jump up to the cloud and see the representation of the same design up in Fusion 360 Manage, and all of the attachments that we created, the new update to the item itself and its bill of materials and all that have been automatically uploaded, put in the right place, connected up, linked back to the object in the vault. The assembly instructions we decided had to go with it, so that's there as well. In this case, we're actually sending the drawing, the DWG version of the drawing itself, up. It was an IDW on-prem, so we did a conversion. All of that is done automatically. Having to do these things manually, your chances of getting it right, if you were me, it would be slim to none. If you were someone more organized than me, I'd give you 50-50 that you'd get it all correct, right? So in the end, this is having these things automatically synchronized under your appropriate flow of control makes it so that you can sort of survive having these two systems handle what they do best, right? The cloud system is great at having users who are not CAD users working in this environment. So if I'm supposed to buy these parts, or if I'm supposed to just see, pull them together to send off to an assembly shop or something like that, I can work in here. Obviously, if I'm the actual CAD designer, I need to work in the CAD environment with the CAD files and the actual changes in the releases of those things, right? So the same idea here, right? One of the nice things about this particular solution is Power PLM, which is a connector between Autodesk Vault and Autodesk Fusion 360 Manage, is that it's even easier to configure because you've got the same, both the systems are well understood and they're both produced by Autodesk, right? So actually to set this up, you really just have to choose a few things in a configuration dialog, because we sort of know both systems, and the standard processes are all pre-wired together. Again, it's very customizable because behind the scenes, these are really job scripts running to do each task. So you can say, oh, well, when you do this, I want to send the CAD file and a DWF and a PDF of it because we need those for different purposes. Okay, fine, you can do that. A lot of times you'll say, I don't want to send the actual CAD file. I just want to send a drawing, or I just want to send a PDF. Well, you can configure that as well. This can also handle things like having the Fusion lifecycle processes kick off tasks in Vault, so you can get to a place in say a corrective action workflow that goes back to Vault and makes a change order, right, and tells the designer to go and change the design to fix this thing, whatever that thing is, and that kicks off then a vaulted process, which is your little wheel inside your big wheel. So I mean, that's really when I do this. The nice thing, just as a last thing about all these products, because they're built on a layer of middleware that we've built on top of the Autodesk standard APIs for all these products, version to version upgrades of your Autodesk products you're essentially isolated from it. You really should not have to change anything unless you want to take advantage of some new feature in the new product, new version, in which case you probably have to add in a new capability into the integration. But for the general purposes, our implementations of these are version independent. So that's that. At this point, if anybody has any questions for me or for Dave, let us know.
I really like how
Oh, go ahead.
I really like how you mentioned it a couple of times, once in the video and then once afterwards. But just want to make sure. I think it's an important bullet point. Is you were talking about, if you don't want to transfer, your internal IP, your drawing, your IDW or whatever, you can use this system to also send a PDF or a DWG if that's the standard. So I like that there's layers to this of what you can do. So it's not necessarily just about the information; it's about the data too.
That's right. Yeah, I mean that's actually one of the more important reasons to automate any of this kind of thing with middleware like a gateway, is that you can decide what gets shared under what circumstances. So related to that, if you noticed when we did the demonstration of pushing a bill of materials over to ERP, in that case we did it with, there was a button in there, right, that said send, what is it, ERP BOM or transfer BOM or whatever, right?
Right.
You can do it that way, and then when you press that button, you can decide, well, what am I sending? I'm sending the database records about that BOM and the items in that BOM and various fields translated correctly. But do I want to send, say, an attachment of some kind that's useful for people who are not working in the CAD environment? Often that's a PDF or a JPEG, but sometimes it's a packet of other information, right? So it's not uncommon for, especially when you're talking about the integration with PLM, to make up a packet of information from a design that's 5 drawings, 3 spreadsheets, a couple of PDFs that are drawn from a Word doc that are like specifications for an outsourced manufacturing shop, right? And what you've done there is you've taken your design and you've created some sort of transmittal or RFQ packet, right? And you can do that in an automated way, and then you put that in your cloud-based PLM system, which is an easier environment than to say share it on BIM 360 or wherever it is with outside parties. But you're careful about what you're sharing. You don't want to send them your core design files, obviously.
Right.
You want to send them
Right.
if they're your sheet metal bending shop, right? You want to send them DXF flat pattern and some information about how much you'll pay them to do the work, right? And how many you need, right?
Right.
So, but you don't want to send them your inventor design, right? Because you don't want to let that outside of your firewall. So all of that is automatable in this process. So yeah, it's a good point, Dave.
Very cool.